Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Well, welcome. I would like to welcome all of our listeners to our monthly podcast. This is the Comadres Once a Month Healing Generations podcast. And we are so glad that you are joining us today and that you made that decision to choose time for yourself, because this is a conversation with women speaking with women. And so sometimes, it's just those words that we need to hear, right? A reflection of ourselves, those things sometimes that we're afraid to say. And yet we hear other people say, oh my gosh, that is exactly what I'm feeling or how I would say it. And so we just want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. My name is Debra Louise Camarillo, proud daughter of Esteban Leos Camarillo and Anita Figueroa, to be hosting over here with my comadre, Maestra Susie, Armiijo. Comadre, how you doing? How is it down there in L.A.?
Oh, we were on the East Coast last week, and that was so cold. Couldn't wait to get home to our beautiful California sunshine. But a creator just has a sense of humor. It's just as cold over here right now. So that was a big surprise. But just, giving thanks to Creator and Ancestors again for blessing us with another precious day of life. Even though, even that the soul up there likes to stay under the cover sometimes a little bit longer.
Just like us, huh?
Absolutely. But beautiful that we know it's a new beginning. It's another day. And it's a gift. It's a gift that we're all here today and being blessed with another day to come together and share and support each other and those around the world. So feeling real grateful, Comadre. Thank you for asking.
Yes, and since you mentioned that privilege we had to be out there in Maryland with the women over there, and what a wonderful gift it was for us as we were there getting to meet new sisters on this healing journey.
Yes.
And, it's so great to be able to see new faces. But we had a wonderful time. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always like coming home. Always the welcoming is just so heartfelt, so tender, and just makes it just so much easier for us to do, our work there and fulfill our purpose, because it's that support, the extended support and that sisterhood that we've been so blessed to create together.
Yes. Well, here we are, Comadre, on another adventure.
Yeah.
Very exciting. And we've got a wonderful mujer that's with us today. I have the privilege of meeting her. We both have, and we're going to explore with her life's adventure. And for us, it's a privilege to have her. And so I just want to say, wherever you are at around the world, that this is the time to pay attention, because you might be seeking some of those words or looking for a little bit more healing. And today might be that day that you hear what you need to hear. But either way, I guarantee you that you will come away better than where we started. And so I am so excited to have this conversation, and especially because as we look to our younger women, and knowing that the journey is going to be in good hands, it's excited for us to be able to spend this time, with our sisters. And so with that, Comadre, I'll pass it over to you to do the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Comadre. It's just a great honor. It's been long awaited, and we always trust in Creator's timing. And so I know this is perfect timing for us to be able to come together and just welcome our sister Norca Yarborough. She is a first-generation daughter to immigrant parents from the Dominican Republic and Ecuador, who always knew that she wanted to serve her immigrant community over there on the East Coast in Maryland. As a proud daughter, a sister, a wife, mother of 2 boys, tia and madrina, she knows the impact of leading with her heart, puro corazón, all the time, about utilizing her mind as well as her voice. So important for us as mujeres. Norca is an experienced mental health professional who has worked over 17 years with EML students and families as a trauma-responsive, culturally affirming first responder. She is trained in welcoming newcomers, reunification needs, family separation dynamics, crisis response, and culturally affirming practices. She has a master's degree in social work with a concentration in children and families. Is certified as a circle keeper and Jove Noble facilitator, neurosequential model for educators, prepare, PARE, crisis responder, and restorative justice practices. She enjoys providing safe spaces for our children to identify themselves and honor their gender and cultures, collaborating with school staff and leaders on providing equitable practices and environments. As the leader of the EML therapeutic counseling team, Norca continues to engage the ETCs in anti-racist professional learning while also accepting this year's Betty Humphrey Equity Champion Award from Mental Health America with all of her beautiful team. Welcome, Norca. Wow.
Thank you. Wow. What an honor to be here with both of you, Maestras. Thank you truly for the opportunity.
It is an honor for us as well. Yes. You just carry so much medicina, and at the top of the list, that being corazón, amor, always, always, always. I'd like to give you a little time to invite you to share a little bit about your familia, your background, and maybe the work that you're connected to at this time, whatever comes out of your spirit, your heart. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's just you. It's all you.
Thank you. I love this fact that this would be like a plática we would have in our living room, right? Or in our backyard together as women, like we love to do, right?
Yes.
So I am a first-generation American. My name is Norca Yarborough. My mom is Natividad de Jesus, because she's born on Christmas, Vasquez Salas. And then my father is Oscar Alejandro Salas. And both of my parents immigrated here at different stages of their lives and really met upon chance and had 3 beautiful children. I am the oldest and love being the oldest. And it comes with a lot of responsibility. And I'm very proud to be the oldest. Ever since my parents arrived to this country, I always think about lucky number 7. My mom is one of 14. She has 14 siblings.
Wow.
So she was lucky number 7, I say, because at the time when a visa opportunity came about, my grandmother said to her, "You're the one that's got to go." And she was like, "Why me?" And she's like, "Because your sisters are all older, the ones that were older. They're married, they have children, they can't go. And your other siblings are all younger and they haven't gotten married yet and they're still in school, etc. So they can't go. And you're right in the middle and you're at the perfect age. And we think it's time for you to go and represent our family." And so when my mom always talks to us about this story, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, it's a lot, right? To ask of a 17, 18-year-old young lady to leave their family and just come and actually work for another family, right? And I say lucky 7 because my dad came when he was 7 years old from Ecuador. So my grandmother decided, in Nelia Ampuero, she decided to bring my dad from Quito to the Washington, D.C. area where my parents both met. And back in the 70s, it was tough. And so my grandmother was a Black woman and my grandfather was a white man. And so she knew the importance of bringing my dad here to this country and the opportunities that it was going to bring that he didn't necessarily have in his home country. So she was able to sacrifice a lot for our family and work, from night to day to ensure that he had like the proper education, and later in life had the opportunity to meet my mom. And while she didn't have the opportunity to go to school, my mom always will tell you that there's a lot of people that went to school that don't have common sense. And there's a lot of people that didn't go to school that know a lot more than the people that do. And so I always honor and respect that from her, because she just keeps it 100% with anybody she meets, anybody she comes encounter with. She's like, do you really want to hear my opinion? And so I think that I get a lot from her. And being an older sister, how I take care of my siblings and how I looked out for them. Unfortunately, my parents separated when I was an early adolescent. And so my mom having to raise 3 children here in this country without the whole social support of her siblings back home was really difficult. But what I can remember and what I always cherish is from the moment she came here, she would always talk to us about our great aunt and our other aunt who was here, and the tias who weren't blood tias, but became our aunts through, my mom's really close friendships with them. And so we were blessed to just have extended family here, and we call their kids our cousins and things like that, because they were going through similar experiences at the same time. And as I think back to reflect on that, it was important that my mom had other people that unfortunately were going through the same struggle, because she knew she wasn't alone, right? And I think that helped to shape my sister and I. We're a year apart, but then my brother and I are 8 years apart. So there's a bit of an age gap. So I think it shaped us to be strong women and to know what we're capable of and what it means to serve your community, right? My mom has a strong faith. So we grew up in the church. We grew up going to youth group and going to Sunday school, and then later becoming Sunday school teachers and assistants. So my mom always would teach us that like our faith was going to help us and guide us, and that our family and our church was our extended family, and that everything was going to be okay. So I think I learned at an early age what servitude was because of being in the church, seeing how my mom served, and I had the opportunity of being in Girl Scouts. And so I actually was one of the few that kept going even through my adolescence. A lot of people, stopped going after, elementary age, but I really, really liked it. I really liked all the opportunities that we had, being a group of girls first and then transitioning into teen women and being led by other women to just serve our community. So if there was something simple of serving in a soup kitchen or, cleaning up a park or doing a toy book drive, whatever it was, we always knew that this is what we needed to do. Take care of our land, take care of our community, and give back to those who need it, right? And so I think from then, I just knew that I needed to do something in my community, with my community. And so that's, I think, where the connection with children and families all started for me.
Wow. What a great way to be introduced to serving others and to wanting to be involved in helping others in the community when we see the role modeling.
Yes.
Because that's one of the big deals, right? They say you could say all kinds of things and people really will hear you, but not necessarily listen. But the biggest teacher is what we see, right? That role modeling process. And so what a beautiful way to come into servanthood and to be there with a serving heart in your community. I was thinking as you were sharing your story, so you have your father that's coming from Ecuador, and that's the land. That's part of a great continent. And then you have your mother that's coming out of DR, the Dominican Republic. That's an island in the Caribe.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have two different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, how do you see that melting into you and that cultural piece? How does it pour out in order to meet the needs of the community that you serve? Because dealing with the immigrant population, one of the biggest things is, people just don't come because they don't have nothing else to do. And so when you have to leave so much behind, the hardship of that, but how does that work and flow through you, kind of the coming together of both of those cultural perspectives?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question, because every time I think about both sides of my family, I think about Coroísmo and how both of my grandmothers were Black and both of my grandfathers were white. And while my maternal grandfather would always defend my grandmother when people would say, "Oh, ¿por qué estás con esa negra?" And he was like, don't worry about it. That's my woman. I'm proud to be with her. El orgullo que siento. Look at my long extended family. I have 14 kids. And he would always make sure that people respected her, right? And honored her. And it didn't matter the color of her skin. And my grandmother, because on my dad's side in Ecuador, you can just imagine being a Black woman. And she got to be in really high positions and working as a maid in these positions with many people of high rankings and of wealth. You can imagine, right? But primarily white people. And so we come from countries where the help is supposed to look a certain way and they're treated a certain way. She came to the realization that she needed to have tough skin to be able to survive. It didn't matter who she had 2 kids by and what he looked like. She knew what she looked like and how my dad and his brother looked and presented. And she needed to make sure that they were going to be honored and respected. And so it was her mission. And she always says that she sacrificed, and she took a huge risk of fleeing with my dad. And she left my actually older uncle behind because she wanted him to have an opportunity that she knew that he wasn't going to be able to have because of the color of his skin in Ecuador. And so when I think of that, and I think of how both of my parents actually came together and raised my siblings and I to accept everyone for who they are. It doesn't matter where they're coming from. And you do what you do, and you're connected to everyone. We're very strong believers because back then in the 70s, my mom will tell you, the DC community, todos los latinos se conocían, right? So chances are somebody was going to know my mom, somebody was going to know my dad. And if not, they were going to know her friend or, the person where she went to English school. It was something like that, right? And so you always had this pride and fear of, okay, I better not mess up. And at the same time, wow, like we've come so far, right? Because when my mom talks about one Latino supermarket in Mount Pleasant, and now like we can walk 1 block and in my mom's neighborhood, there's like 3 and 4. And I think about the struggle of people who came during their time and the acculturation experiences that they had. My dad coming as a young boy and, being able to go through the school system here and eventually actually graduating from Howard University. And my mom coming as an older woman and what that meant, right? And having to learn everything. And so when I work and I serve our families, that's the first thing that comes to mind, right? The experiences that they had and how that impacts us and how we're all connected. And you never know what you do today, how it's going to impact somebody tomorrow. And so my parents were really, really advocates of ensuring that we were bilingual and that we were going to speak Spanish. And so my dad would tell my mom, don't worry, she'll learn English in school. And she was like, are you sure? Because, the pressure of children here being and speaking English and everything, and back in the 80s. And so my mom was like, okay. And so I got to school and it was this really weird experience. They're like, oh, what country are you from? Because guess what? Maestra Susie and Maestra Debra, I was in ESL. And all the kids in my class were from all these other countries. And I was like, Mom, why are they asking me what country I'm from? And she's like, oh, porque no hablas inglés? And I was like, oh. And so she's like, so they assume that you weren't born here and that you're from another country. She goes, but don't worry. She's going, you're going to learn English like this. And it so happened. So when my sister, who's literally a year behind me, got to school, she didn't even need ESL classes or anything like that. And so I think back on that because to me, it was honestly a blessing that they continued to speak to us in Spanish and instill in us that it is part of our identity. And we should be proud and we shouldn't hide, the language of our ancestors. And to this day, there's not a day that goes by that I don't speak Spanish. And so it's part of who I am. And I'm so grateful for them to instilling that in me and in my siblings, because all of us have actually jobs. My brother Braulio is an ESL teacher for high school students. And my sister actually is a communication specialist, bilingual communication specialist. So when I think about that, we wouldn't have been where we are had it not been for them, pushing and instilling that in us. And I think about how their parents pushed and instilled them to have better opportunities that they didn't have.
What a blessing. What a blessing. Oh, my question was going to be before you spoke was, and this is because of, having the blessing of your welcoming. Every time we go to Maryland, you just feel the love the lemon cake. I can still taste it.
Delicious.
You just made sure that you showed up every morning and welcomed us, made sure we had everything we needed, and just that we always felt well taken care of, and we don't always get that everywhere we go. So I really want to acknowledge you and your team, your healing space there. It's just so heartwarming. You just have that special gift of welcoming with so much love. And I'm connecting the dot there to, the first lesson of acknowledgement. It's beautiful that you were able to be acknowledged when you came to school, and in spite of the language barrier, you were still encouraged to embrace all of who you are. It's so important. Not all of us had that blessing or even to speak our own language. So what a powerful gift. I'm just wondering if you could share, you've had such wonderful examples starting in the home about welcoming, about acknowledgement, about embracing all of who you are. Have you been able to integrate some of your cultural upbringing, values with all of the beautiful children that you work with? Because I know it's a difficult time, especially what's going on right now. I'm sure there's a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity, anxiety. How have you been able to incorporate that corazón with the beautiful children that you work with?
One of the things is how we introduce ourselves in our role. With our students and families. And so when I say consejera, I'm like, have you ever had a consejera, a counselor? And they're like, no. And I'm like, do you know what a counselor does? And they're like, no. And then I was like, do you know the word consejo? And they're like, yeah. And then I'm like, who gives you a consejo? And they're like, my grandma, my tia, my teacher, And I'm like, yeah, I was like, so this is like a title, right? But I say to them, it's really about people who are your mentors, people who are instilling that wisdom in you and who really want to guide you, right? And help you along the way. And so I just say, I'm just another person here to help and guide you through what it means to be going through this American school system, living in this community. I know what it feels like firsthand to be a bicultural child and have to explain to your parents why you want to go to a homecoming dance, right? And so I think it's important for me to be me and to share with me, I've been in your shoes and I know what you're going through and I know that it's not easy. And at the same time, also telling them, you are bringing everybody along in this journey with you. You didn't make it all the way by accident, right? You are here because there's a purpose. There's so many people that wanted you to be here, that have sacrificed for you to be here. And we're going to make this the best experience you've ever had, right? And don't get me wrong. It's difficult for some kids to make those connections when they first get here, right? To really feel like they fit in. And you know what I tell them? Stay true to yourself and be yourself. Because the minute you start being fake, that's the minute you start being in circles with fake people. And I'm just like, nope. I'm like, if you're from two cultures and you want to represent two cultures, you do you. And if it's hard to explain, why is it that you have this crush on somebody? Think about what is that barrier of you wanting to tell your family members why you want to date somebody outside of your race, right? And so I think I bring that all into the spaces that I'm in because of the conversations that we were allowed to have in our home. There was nothing that was really like, oh, we're not going to talk about that. Actually, my friends and cousins, etc., would come to my mom because their moms would be like, I better not find out. And my mom was like, no, tell me, because I'm going to tell you, whether you want to hear it or not, the advice that you need, right? And I think it's important for us to just remain connected to our ancestors and to our mentors, and also know that that evolves and that changes along the journey, right? And so I met some kids and I've met them in elementary and then continued to work with them at the middle school level and see how they blossom and they change. And it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. I've also had to help kids who not had the opportunity to be their true, authentic selves back in their home country because of oppression, because of racism, because of non-acceptance of LGBTQ community. And so having those difficult conversations with the students about, you know, what is it that you want? And who is it that you want to tell? And who is it that you trust? Because this is going to be a journey, right? And so I think all of that is part of like who I am. And that's how I lead in the work of, you know, when I was doing the direct service work. And I think it has helped me to be the leader of the team that I am now because I was doing the work. And so one of the things that I think everyone appreciates on my team and tells me time and time again is, Norca, you were 2 years ago, not that long ago, right beside us, you know, working in our schools in some of the most difficult environments and dealing with very, very severe crises, and also having a lot of joyful moments, a lot of celebrations. I have pictures of every single 8th grade promotion that I've been to, you know, Hispanic Heritage Night, all of those things that have been super important for our students and families to represent and know that I was there. And so that now that I'm stepping into that leadership role, I think it matters to have people really supporting, or people that are front facing and are doing the work, because a lot of times people are so removed and don't understand what it takes, right? And have been away from the work so long that they can't even begin to comprehend how difficult it is right now. How difficult it is right now for a student to come into your office and say, my mom wants to go back and I don't want to leave. What do you tell them? But it's so hard in this country right now. Yeah. I don't blame some of these caregivers for saying enough is enough. We can't continue to live like this, porque esto no es vida. And so what we're seeing now is the reverse. Parents who have sacrificed leaving their homeland to come here, and now children who are sacrificing all they know here to go back to a land that they've never met. family members that they only know through FaceTime and WhatsApp. And so it's really difficult right now.
Thank you for that honesty. It's the discussion so needs to be had, so we can find those solutions. Thank you for that.
Well, it's no secret that we are in a time that probably for many of us, and I just say myself, I never thought we would be in a time as we are today. It feels like we have gone backwards in many things.
Yes.
And especially when you're talking about the immigrant population that is really bearing the brunt of this. And they happen to be the target or the scapegoats of what others are trying to do at this time. You made me remember, I was just seeing yesterday, and it was a father from Honduras. And he was just saying and shedding tears as he was saying it. He said, you know what? Like you said, no es vida. This isn't life. To live in the fear every day that he's like, I can't do it. And he said, and I can't, in all good consciousness, put my family through this. Mm-hmm. And he said, people say, oh, they're afraid for immigration to come. He says, I hope they come and take us so that we can get a free trip back, because this is not life.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so, to your point of that, when I think about this, I'm like, what has hardened our heart so hard to not be able to have compassion and humanity towards our brothers and our sisters? And I'm not saying that there isn't parts of the system to be fixed, most definitely. But immigration certainly isn't the only part of the system that needs to be fixed. But we have definitely been targeted as a people, Latinos in general. Mm-hmm. And I think the difficulties of being a youth and then just hearing all the rhetoric, the negative rhetoric of how they define you as a person. That you're a criminal, that you're a disease, it's horrendous, the articulation that's targeted at our community. And so I'm just wondering, Norca, because I so proud of you that now you're in that leadership position, but it's very fresh because you were on that front line. And so now as a leader, how are you guiding? And what are those consejos, or what is that the feeling, ¿cómo estás llenando a la gente que estás guiando and leading, and how are you helping them as they have to deal with this on a daily basis?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the first things that I thought of is you got to give people their flowers while they're here, right? And my team has never been recognized, and no one's really ever highlighted them. And to be a team of mental health professionals that majority are immigrants or children of immigrants, all speaking languages. I mean, you've seen the representation of our team. The minute you walk into places, they're like, are you somebody's mom? Are you the interpreter? The first thing that comes to mind is not that you're the mental health professional here to serve. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it my mission. And I nominated my team for that Equity Champion Award. And honestly, I did it just to tell them, I am so honored that I'm just going to nominate you all and see what happens. But when they won, let me tell you, I was so proud, because I was like, you know what? It doesn't have to be a school. It doesn't have to be a school system. It doesn't have to be our county. This is an international organization that just recognized that my team matters. People that look like us and speak our languages and come from war-torn countries and are refugees, we matter. And that's what equity looks like, right? And so when I spoke and accepted the award, I had every single child we've ever served with me. I had every single 26 of my team members with me, and those that have retired and those, unfortunately, that are no longer with us, but that we hold in our hearts because they were our mentors and continue to be the reason why we do this job. But it's difficult to be in some spaces and to continue to ask those questions, to continue to advocate, right? Because we have to acknowledge that just because our parents have 2 and 3 jobs doesn't mean they don't care. Doesn't mean that because they had to come home and make dinner and there's no babysitter, that's why they didn't go to your PTA meeting. But that doesn't mean that they don't care. And so that voice that also needs to be elevated, those experiences that also need to be elevated, need to be at the table too. And, you know, the loudest voice always wins, right? And so I've taken it to be my mission, along with my other huge, which you've had the privilege of meeting too, recognizing our leadership team too. And so this past year was a very powerful year because our director too was also recognized. And to be a Latina, to be the administrator of the year, for us is also a sense of pride, because to oversee international admissions and enrollment, we're not the first thing that comes to people's mind, because why? Our international children are not the first thing that comes to people's mind. And so I think it's really important for us to keep fighting the good fight and also continuing to build those bridges, and also recognize that when we have difficult moments and times, that I have to be transparent with my team because they trust me. So I have to tell them what's really going on and how it's transpiring and what I need from them and what do they need from me. And we just keep this open communication. And I really feel like that's what's brought us to where we are and continues to help them also to build their capacity and to also step into advocacy roles, because times are tough and a lot of people want to cut a lot of things right now. And let me tell you, my team's not going down without a fight, because we know and recognize that if we do not uplift and put the priority of our newcomer students and our EMLs at the forefront, who will? Right? That's right. Anybody that works in our profession, in our field, and who we collaborate with knows, and they say we can't do this alone. We need you all. You are all the people, not just because of the language. You have that culture. You have that understanding. You have what it takes to explain to a mom. I know it's not easy that right now you're hearing all of this that a psychologist just told you about your child having an autism spectrum disorder. And this is what it means. But taking it back further of, I know what this means in your country. I know what you think your child has right now. And we're going to get through this. And this is how we're going to continue to work together. And people always are almost like flabbergasted by, they're like, oh my gosh, what did you all do? How did you say? And it's by relationships. It's trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was remembering when we were there the first time, oh my gosh, we had, I want to think it was 31 countries represented with your team. I mean, we had somebody from every continent around the world.
Absolutely.
It's such amazing. It just, y'all do such tremendous work. Yeah.
And I bet you've never seen that.
Nope.
Never.
No, actually, I carry the little recording in my phone.
Oh,
that's Maestras, Susie, because it was, for us, it was such a blessing to be there with all of your team. Yeah.
It's such a powerful confirmation of all the work that we do collaboratively, that we're on the right path. That there's just so many dark realities that are going on in spite of, wanting to be their light, wanting to be their support, on an ongoing basis. The reality is still there, whether, whatever side you're looking at it from, politically or the law-wise or whatever. Everybody has their job to do. But at the end of the day, the reality is there is still an overwhelming feeling of fear, of hopelessness, continued anxiety, mental health issues, so many things that our immigrant community are experiencing, especially, right now. And, let's be real. It's a very emotionally heavy load to carry on a daily basis, however you want to look at it, to be able to find that strength. You mentioned your mama and her ability to be a truth sayer. If you want to know, here it is. To have that courage to do that, to be raised with such a strong faith. I can see those qualities in you so clearly. I'm sure she's so proud of you, as well as all of your familia, your ancestors, to be able to carry that forward. But I'm just wondering, all of us that are in these positions of being that light for others, that hope for others in such dark times, if there's anything that you can share with us about how you have been able to maintain your balance, in all those quadrants, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. What are some of those things that maybe you can share that can help our mujeres and those of us who are in leadership roles to remind them to take care of themselves? Because if we can't show up for our job, then we, there goes our purpose. We need to be able to keep going. What are those strengths that you have found, those values, or whatever that is that has helped you be Norca to go forward and not give up?
Number one, that I'm so grateful and thankful for the opportunity that you all provided when you came and trained us, because it was just affirmation of we're doing this the right way. And this is what our girls need to hear. And sometimes we get the wisdom and the words and the encouragement, but we don't really know how to connect. And the first thing that comes to mind is we're all a blessing and we deserve to be blessed. And to me, I remember even from when I was young, going to the Dominican Republic, and my mom would say, besa la mano. That's what Dominicans say. And that means you're supposed to ask for the blessing. And so I'll never forget. I was like, Mom, kiss her hand. And she's like, no, you have to ask for la bendición. And so I'm like, oh. And so then Dominicans, instead of saying bendición, you say sion tía. And then they say que Dios te bendiga. May God bless you, right? And I just thought that was so powerful that every time, because, you greet with the hug and the kiss and, you acknowledge, but to know that they really know that you're a blessing and they want God to continue to bless you, that affirmation that you hear every time you see a relative it's powerful. And you don't see that here. And so to see that in my mom's home country, it's powerful, right? Because kids grow up knowing that they're supposed to be here, that they are a blessing and they're connected to a higher being, and that everyone around them is praying for them and really wanting what's best for them and to guide them, right? And just this morning, my mom was telling me, I don't remember which first lady said it, but it takes a village. Because I was asking her, I was like, what's something that you think that everybody needs to know? And she said, you can't do this alone. We have to take care of ourselves first, and then we can take care of other people, right? And she says, Norca, it's sad, but I remember before, she goes, if you used to see somebody's kid doing something wrong, you used to be like, hey, what are you doing? No, you can't go there. Or cuidado, you are going to get hit by a car. And you would never fear that anybody was going to say anything to you or be mad at you for doing that. She said, because it was just this common understanding that we all took care of each other, right? And I know Maestro Jerry talks about that too, right? And she was giving me the example of the neighbor's little 2-year-old had run out the house, and the mom didn't realize this. This was just 2-3 months ago. And she saw Noah running down the street, and she goes, Noah, what are you doing? And he stopped in his tracks and looked at my mom, and she said, come. And he was just running. And she said, oh my goodness, I just knew I had to get him to stop running because the last thing I wanted him to do was run into the street, right? But my mom has built this relationship with her neighbor where she didn't feel like she was doing anything wrong. She knew that she was helping. And oh my goodness, she was so grateful to my mom. And it was something so simple, right? But to my mom, she says that's what's missing. That's what we need more of. We need more of connecting with each other, knowing our neighbors, not just when we're going out of town, watch my house kind of thing,
Right.
you know?
Yes.
And really, and really just being there for each other, right? And it's true because over there I see it. Vecina, tiene un poquito de aceite. Mándamelo con el niño. They'll say like, oh, can you send me a little bit of oil? Like, I just need a little bit. And your kid would just go run next door, get it, and come back, right? Here, you're going to go to the store, get in your car, you know what I mean? And then stop cooking because you forgot this. And it's just different, you know? And so I think about that. I think about how we need to take care of each other more, especially now where the rhetoric is being divisive and being and othering us and really thinking about what it means to be a child now, hearing the messaging, right? And so if we took care of each other as a community and we told our children now, you do belong here. You are a blessing. You are part of the family, you know? And I think if we did that more, we would not take things for granted as well, right? My family gets together every Sunday, all of our siblings, my mom, and we make sure to go to my mom's house and she cooks and, you know, we all have a great time dancing, singing, like, you know, just messing around and eating good food. And it's always like my mom starts in the morning with like, are y'all coming? Which one's coming? Like if somebody can't, because, you know, they have something else to do or whatever, she's like, just let me know. And she's always like, I'm still going to cook. And so you almost feel like this sense of like, okay, well, I'm just going to go. And then, of course, you can't just go and pick up the food, right? And so it's about being connected, right? And being there and spending that time. And so I'm really trying to instill that in my boys because they're like, oh, why do we have to go to my mom's? Like, can I just stay here playing my game? Or I'm in the middle of, you know, this thing that I'm doing. And I'm like, it's just a few hours once a week. And that's what my mom used to tell us about church. She says it's 1 hour. 1 hour you're giving to God. And so I'm trying to tell that to my boys, right? Like now they don't get it. And now they're like, oh, you know, but I think later, and I hope later in life, they'll really understand that the memories we're building, there's no price for that, right? Yeah. That's going to last them a lifetime. Yes. And our hope is that they're going to pass that down to their kids and they're just going to continue to be connected, right, to their village.
Thank you for that. It's just such, and we know it, but yeah, we need those reminders.
Yeah.
Time
for
flies.
Real. It does. It does. Yeah. And one of the things I will say that has helped a lot is to definitely travel and experience what other people experience in their own countries. And I have a feeling that's why a lot of people here in this country, unfortunately, are so narrow-minded, is because they only know this one way of doing things. And they think only their way is the right way. And so if you haven't left this land and traveled to another, if you haven't gone and experienced smells and sights and sounds and tastes of something else, it's like, what are you doing with your life, right? Because for us, it's so important to really honor and respect everyone's culture and everyone's upbringing. And we don't look at it as right or wrong, right? We ask questions and we're like, oh, you're from the South. Oh, you do it this way. Yeah, I'm from the North. We cook this. I'm like, oh, why? Oh, because you're not next to the river where there's the fish and the beach. And, you know, so obviously you're going to have this type of stew as opposed to this type of soup. And so those are things you don't learn in the classroom. You learn through being at the table with your family, right? And having those pláticas with your tías and your neighbors, you know, and just sharing those experiences. One of the things that I know that everybody appreciates, and my mom has always instilled in us. She always says, in good times and in bad, en las buenas y en las malas. And I'm like, why? And she's like, everybody comes when there's a birthday, when there's, bautizo, when there's a wedding. Everybody always wants to celebrate. But when people land in the hospital, when somebody passes, when somebody's really sick, she's like, everybody says, oh, yeah, I don't really do hospitals. Or, oh, ever since such and such died, I don't do funerals anymore. And my mom tells me that's not something we just do, And she said, it's a cycle of life. And she goes, we're all here. And this is our time. And then when our time is up, she says, and we're all connected. So the same way people were here for our family, we have to be there for their family. Yes. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because my mom was always going to somebody's funeral, somebody's hora santa, something. And I'm like, oh my God. And I would say, why do so many people die? And then I'm like, no, it's just that my mom knows a lot of people. And that's the way you show your respect, right? Yeah. That's the way you honor the people who were there for you. And I think it's so important now more than ever, because I feel like this generation is living in the now, and everything with social media that the kids are seeing is about portraying a particular lifestyle or, being cool or whatever is the latest, right? And it's like, but is that really you? Are you really connected to your true and authentic self? Are we talking about how we're blessed with what we have instead of showing off what we have, right? And I think for me, it's really important for me to keep my boys connected to our faith because of that. For me to maintain those daily phone calls with my mom and, make sure that we keep that connectedness within our families. My brother just had his first daughter's first birthday, which is a huge deal. And my sons were like, this is a big party. She got a lot of presents. And I was like, yes. I was like, this is what we do. This is how we do it. The dessert table was a whole table of lots of things. And, the fact that they're growing up knowing that this is what family does and that's how we celebrate. They'll also know, though, because they have been to funerals with over 150 people. And they're like, oh, my goodness, this is a lot of people in this church. And it's like, yep. Yep. So that's, how that person impacted our life. And so I think about that. It starts from when you first, baptize or put water on a baby or celebrate their first birthday, whatever it is you believe in, till you're no longer able to be here, right? And we do what we can while we have the opportunity to do so, right? And I think that's what my family has always instilled in me, is to just practice what you preach.
That's it right there. That is it.
Lead with good intentions and good energy and vibe, and the blessings will come back to you.
That's right. I tell you, every time we do this, the time flies. It just goes, and now we're, getting ready to end. And I just want to thank you for such wonderful, stories and sharing your life with us. And I know messages have been going out here of all of the different stuff that you've shared, right? And a lot of ánimo, a lot of encouragement.
Yes.
And I really want to thank you for that. And as we're ending right now, I wonder if you could just share a consejo. Given the times, given all the situation, what words of encouragement can you leave us with today?
Yeah. Times are really tough, Maestra. Times are really tough right now. And I know that everybody in our community right now, whether you're documented or undocumented, whether you have your it doesn't matter. We're all connected. We're all feeling each other's pain. My boys asked me, like, why is Mama and why are you all like so sad about what happened in the Dominican Republic? All those people died. Like, did you know somebody there? And I said, no, but we didn't need to know anybody there. We're all connected. And if something happens to the people in our country, something happens to the people in our community, we all feel the pain. And so my consejo would be like, even though times are tough right now, and I know life isn't easy, to stay true to yourself, right? And don't change who you are. And just remember all the teachings and the energy that your ancestors have provided to you, because that energy is what's going to help you through this very difficult time. And it's going to help you heal. And it's going to get you through this.
Wow. Well, Norca, thank you so much for sharing yourself with us today. And listeners, I know that you have heard something. You have been so encouraged today, because definitely there was glitter that was coming out of the pain. There was the beauty in the ashes as she shared her story and the multiple times, right? Being able to look at something and put that positive spin on it. And so as you're there and maybe you find yourself in a challenging moment, remember, there's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. The only thing is that we got to hang on to get to that end of the tunnel. And so I just want to thank you for joining us, for making the decision to be with us here on this podcast. Thank you so much. Well, comadre, another podcast down, man. And I know you're feeling good like I am.
So much healing. Beautiful, powerful words, Norca. Thank you so much. Just hear Creator and ancestors just flowing right through you, and what needs to be shared, what needs to be heard, what needs to be acknowledged. Just so powerful. I just wish you, God bless you. God bless you for everything that you do. And
thank you.
Please go forward. We need you. We need your team. We need all the support that you continue to give to so many in your communities. And just, remembering to be heart-centered, spirit-led, leading with your mind, leading with your voice, and as always, un corazón, with your heart. Adelante.
Siempre. Thank you. It's been an honor.
So we just want to thank you. And this wraps up another Healing Generations podcast by the National Comadres Network. And we hope you join us again next month. Bendiciones.
Bendiciones.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.